welcome to Midnight Slumber. I am your host, Zach Miller. Join me as we take a journey through the alternate realities that take place after midnight. Our story for this episode shows the abundance of wealth and a competition of the minds. Sometimes, the prize for winning a competition isn't what you were actually promised. Enjoy the story called Famous. The air is extremely humid, and the sun is trying to bake everything it touches. Even with the humidity being as thick and heavy as it is, plants are still dying and drying out due to this record-high summer heat. Thankfully, I am taking somewhat of a refuge from the sun by being in my garage. It's still hot in here, but not nearly as bad as being out there. Even the giant air conditioner in the corner running at full blast can't keep up with this heat. Just a moment ago, the sun peered through one of the windows for a brief passing, and just in that short amount of time, it gave me a sunburn on my right arm. My cat, unfazed by the heat, struts under my wife's car to check on me as I work. I'm laying on my soaked back as I try and finish cleaning up the caked-on dirt under her car. My black and white cat purrs a deep purr as it slowly rubs up against my outstretched arms. Her fur feels wonderfully soft against my burnt skin. It's also relieving as her dry fur soaks up the dampness on my arms, cooling me off, something the air conditioner hasn't even done. I reach out to pet my cat, and she is cool to the touch. She feels like she just walked out of a cold freezer. She knows I am hot and makes her way over, stepping on my chest and curls up to take a nap as I work. Her cool body starts to rapidly cool me down from the heat, and it is gladly welcomed. There's not much left to do or clean up underneath her new car, but getting all that mud off will help keep the car light. As I wipe away the last bit of mud, I can see the new engine I installed last week. I reach into my pocket and click the engine start button on the key ring, and the car begins to hum like an angel. The engine lights up a wonderful shade of blue, and the car slowly begins to rise off the ground until it is hovering high enough for me to stand under it. My cat hops off my chest, and I get up to walk around underneath, making sure I didn't miss anything. As I step back to view the beautiful red flying Camaro that she has, my cat speaks to me.
Next time she flies, make sure she avoids the giant rat droppings so you don't have to do that type of cleaning again.
I look at her in confusion when I hear a deep set of squeaking coming from the front yard. Turning to look out at my massive driveway, which stretches for at least half a mile. Just beyond the gate, I see a rat the size of a pickup truck roaming around. A sense of disgust and nausea rush over me, realizing what I just cleaned off her car. I can even smell it now, and with the heat from the outside, it is rancid. I rush over to the marble sink in the garage and frantically remove my gloves, tossing them in the trash, and wash my hands. I scrub and scrub until the smell finally goes away. My cat jumps onto the counter and steps on a remote that causes the garage door to shut. As the bright white door shuts, I feel the room quickly cool off. However, looking through the garage windows, I also see the outside turn from a hot summer day to a snowing winter's evening. The sun is low in the sky, and the ground is filling up with snow. I look at my cat thinking, maybe she can explain that, but instead, she just stares at me and purrs with the look every cat gives their owner. The look of, "You're an idiot, but I will let you pet me." Slightly frustrated that my cat won't explain this, not that having a talking cat is normal, I tell her that I need to go to work. I walk past her, petting her one last time as I pass. I grab the tools off the ground and hang them up on my giant industrial wall that houses every kind of tool you could want or need for fixing up cars and trucks. The floor in my garage is a beautiful concrete with specks of blue and silver flakes in them. The ceiling is 2 stories high, allowing flying cars room to move around and for us to store our other cars in the same place. They are all different colors, and they shine with a brilliance as if they are all brand new. There are at least 15 of them parked in here, and it looks like it's only half full. After admiring the vastness of the garage, I make my way to the side door. Opening it, a gust of cold wind hits me as I make my way out. There's a long open hallway with bushes and bright yellow flowers lining the way to the other building. The overhang goes all the way to the other side, keeping the snow from falling on me and the path. The building ahead is small and looks to be no bigger than a normal outdoor tool shed. Reaching the metal door, I pull it open and find a dark room with 4 computers sitting atop a round table. The room is only lit by these computer monitors, and no one else is in here. Admiring the room, I notice it's much larger than the outside appearance led me to believe. There are wires covering the ceiling and leading down into the center of the table. The bundle of wires is so thick that upon first glance, I thought it was a support beam running through the middle of the table. These computers connected to these wires must be up for some major tasks, as I have never seen anything with such a need for all these wires. I make my way over and sit down at one of the computers, which my name is on the screen staring back at me. The computer asks for my password, which I am unsure of, but type something in anyway, and it takes it. The computer says hello, and a screen pops up, flashing all sorts of numbers and symbols. The images speed by so quickly, I almost can't see what they are. None of it makes sense, nor do any of the images repeat themselves. As I sit there dumbfounded as to what to do, I am surprised and startled by 3 hooded figures stepping out from the shadows. They slowly move towards the table, not saying a word, and sit down at the other computer monitors. Without saying anything to me, they begin typing away, and as they do, instructions pop up on my screen. It reads, "You must solve the code in order to leave." Now, I sit there even more dumbfounded as to what I am looking at. As I stare, another message pops up saying, "Only one of you may leave." I realize it's a race, or really a strange competition. Now I am more alert, but that still doesn't help me understand what I am looking at. Either way, I begin typing in the blank box, guessing at what the encoded message is trying to say. I type and type away for what seems like hours before I finally have some messages that I think might be the answer. Yet, as I enter each one of them, none of them work. I take a moment to breathe, to try and catch my breath when I hear a ding go off near me. I look up to see what that was, and there is a green light above the computer to my left. The light is bright, illuminating the rest of us who are sitting there. With that green light now shining, I can see that each computer has 3 lights above it. There must be 3 puzzles to solve, and my opponent has just solved one of them. Worried as to what might happen to me if I don't finish, I begin frantically typing and trying to make any sense of the images and numbers in front of me. Another ding goes off, but this time it's the opponent to my right. More and more images and numbers pop up, flashing faster and faster until I see something on screen that catches my attention. For a very brief moment, I see a taco supreme covered in all kinds of cheese. Next, I see a set of numbers and equations that all conclude and equal to the number 3. It seems dumb, but I type in, "I want 3 cheesy supreme tacos." To my surprise, another ding goes off, but this time, it's over my computer. I laugh with joy and surprise that I got one, but that is quickly short-lived as 2 more dings go off. one being the opponent in front of me, and the other going to the opponent to my left, who now has only one code left to solve. I immediately get back to typing when the room seems to begin to slowly start spinning. It's not fast enough to make anyone dizzy, but it is distracting. So much so that the opponent to my right starts to look around. This buys me some time, which the next one is relatively easy as I can tell the code is hinting at the number of people in this room, to which I type in 4 and a ding goes off, lighting up another light above my computer. However, as this happens, the room changes again, but this time, the floor begins to slowly move up and down in a ripple pattern. A part of me starts to feel like we are out in the ocean. Thankfully, the motion isn't violent enough to make me feel motion sick, but it is enough to make me grip my chair to keep from falling out. This new motion causes me to be distracted enough that another ding goes off, and it's the opponent across from me. As his lights up, the whole room makes a loud, low pop, shaking the room just slightly. The room begins to slowly tilt to one side, causing one side of the room to go higher than the other. However, because we are rotating in a circle, it's like being in a funhouse ride where one person is higher at one moment and then lower at another. As we continue to type, the angle of the room tilt continues to get worse and worse over time until it finally reaches a 90-degree angle. As it rotates around, every time each one of us gets rotated to the side, we must hold on to our chairs with at least one hand, otherwise we would fall out of our seats. As I get rotated to my side where the ground is on my left, another ding goes off and now all of us have 2 green lights. The room makes one last change, but before it does, seat belts emerge from the seats and strap us in. The belts are a tight bright orange, reminding me of racing harnesses that some of the pro race car drivers use. As our seat belts lock in place, the room speeds up and begins to go upside down. The room is now spinning and looping in all kinds of directions on top of everything else that it is doing. Thankfully, we don't have to hold on to our seats anymore, but now it's hard to keep our hands on the keyboard and our eyes to stay focused on the screens. As we spin, all the screens flash a shade of red, and then begin to show pictures and numbers at an even faster rate than before. It's almost too fast to see, when I have the idea that maybe I can type in a line of code that will slow everything down. I dive into the computer's line of code and manage to find just what I am looking for. I set the computer to show everything at 1/4 of the speed so that I can see the images long enough to know what they are, but not so long that I slow myself down. Once that is done, I back out and can now make sense of what I am seeing. Question marks, massive numbers, and famous people pop up on screen. Questions of all kinds flash before me, but all of them have the same pattern of starting with, "Do you?" It takes me a moment as I repeat those words over and over again in my head until it finally clicks what the code is. It's not really a code, but more of a question. I type it in, and I hear a final ding. I look up to see that I am the one who got the final light. The room slows down and gently goes back to how it originally was. My opponents slam their fists into the desks and shout profanity at the fact that they have lost. As the room slows itself to a stop, before any of us can take our seatbelts off, the door to the room gets kicked in. We are blinded by bright flashlights, and I can hear them shout,
"This is the police. Nobody move."
I immediately raise my hands high into the air. I can hear shouting and muffled arguing as I hear my opponent's seatbelts getting undone. Finally, after a few intense moments, the light aimed at my face is lowered, and the police officer apologizes for blinding me with it. He undoes my seatbelt and tells me that I'm free to go, that they had gotten a tip on some hackers who had kidnapped me and were holding me here until someone paid them. I look around and see all 3 of my opponents in handcuffs on the floor. The officer tells me my wife is waiting for me outside, that we should hurry. I start to move when he says something strange to me. He asks with a curiosity,
Hey, aren't you famous?
which causes me to stop in my tracks. I look back at the computer screen slightly worried, where I had typed the final coded message, which says, "Do you want to be famous?" Thank you for listening to tonight's episode. Please leave a comment and check out our social media on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. We would love to hear your thoughts of tonight's episode. I'm your host, Zach Miller, and thanks for listening. Have a good midnight slumber.